Hey everyone, this is Spencer WS, and here I'm just going to do a quick rundown on certain cards for the Gatherer class that are doing too much work and cards that aren't doing enough work. So I want to do this quickly because I know that this is a rapidly changing mod, and I really just want to provide feedback to the mod author. And also, I keep looking intently at the card list here, and and I want to leave the possibility open that there are certain cards that have better uses or a more nuanced assessment than what I can give here. So I just want to run down a few cards that I think really need change. So let's see here. I noticed that Glitched now costs 3 to remove, which is a little bit harsh. Normally, if there are other cards like Wool Gloves or the Thorn card, rare card, what is that? Grass Knot. Those cards help to get rid of these things, but at the same time, the bag that generates this is such a good card that I can kind of see why this costs 3, and I know that upgraded it costs 2. So I'll just let that go, and I'll let a bunch of other things go for various cards. Here are some cards that are not doing enough work. Acid Spray, let's be honest. This card applying 2 weak is really not that special, and its damage bonus is something that you can effectively overlook unless you happen to be building for it, in which case it's still wasting your time. You can do better with this class for 1 energy as in terms of damage. Yeah, it looks like the weak applies whether you get extra damage or not. So if you want to take it just for the weak, that makes some sense. But otherwise, it's pretty lackluster. It's worse than the Silence Weaken card, whatever that was. Bamboo Sword is a almost entire waste of time because you really don't want to give your strikes or defends much play or much attention. Presumably you'll have better cards. So this is only valuable in the early game, and then in the late game it just becomes yet another liability along with all your other strikes and defends. So I don't think that this is a very good card at all. Careful Strike is a great card, and I'll get back to that in a moment with things when it comes to things like Enchant Strike, which is also in this character's deck. Collector's Shot really is the occasion for my video because it is so powerful. It is just an insta pick, and almost always an always pick. And this card is just too good. So usually, even unupgraded, you can get almost 50 damage out of it by the end of the game. You just take it. You don't have to think about it. Just take it. And I don't like cards where you don't have to think about them. You just take them. Particularly because this card makes a lot of other means of dealing damage for this character pretty much obsolete. This card does like 20 damage per energy by default. That's unupgraded. And upgraded, it increases its damage by 25%. That's incredible. So I suggest this card be nerfed. I suggest that it deal only 1 times the number of unique cards, and that number can upgrade to 1.25. I think that's a lot more reasonable. Yeah, I don't even have to think about collecting any cards. This card will do me 40 to 50 damage anyway. Convert is kind of similar. It's very good. The chance in the mid to late game that you'll have an uncommon and rare card that you'd be willing to exhaust is high, at least for the block. And it also can exhaust cards like Glitched. So it is definitely a good card to have around. I wouldn't call it super overpowered. I mean, the block number is pretty high, so I guess in that sense it is pretty overpowered. Yeah, it is overpowered. But I like the idea, and it's useful for some things, and I feel like being able to like hack a few things in your deck with this card is not necessarily an imbalance or an undesirable thing for this class. Drug Power is only useful if you have good potions, and potions are more of a late game option with this class, which I don't particularly like. Basically, there are better ways to block and deal damage than to mess with potions until the end game, and you're able to combo them really well. What I value about this card is its ability to use the last effect of any potion, not just a lesser potion, and that's good. Duplicator is the card that really is the only respectable way to maximize your potion potential, even though it doesn't apply to potions that aren't lesser. And again, this is an in-game option. And I don't know how to fix it exactly, but I'm a tad bit disappointed that this class can only really weaponize potions as an in-game option with a few key cards, such as Duplicator. So that's something I wish the class would be a little bit better at. Flower Falling. So about the flower cards, they're actually not that good. And first of all, I wish there would be more flower cards, because I'm actually excited to upgrade cards multiple times and if the ending effect was worth it. But generally speaking, the ending effect is not worth it, particularly because it took you 3 upgrades to get to that point. So that's 3 upgrades you could have spent on anything else, unless you happen to get an extra upgrade through other means. But so the final version, I'm being told, costs 0 and heals for 3. I thought it actually just healed for 3 and not cost 0. So that's slightly good. But my chief problem with a card like this is that it exhausts. And so I don't understand why you would bother to upgrade a card 3 times if it's just going to exhaust and you're not going to be able to use it. So Flower Whip is a nice upgrade at its 3rd level. It does 3 times 5 damage, but it's still 0 cost, and it only does 15 damage by the end of it. So that's not a very desirable card to upgrade 3 times at all. Its chief advantage is if you have a source of strength, so you can do multi-damage and have that strength bonus be multiplied. But as we'll get into, there actually isn't a lot of means that this class has to increase strength and do such damage. Okay. Frenzy. Yeah, I'll just go through cards that are too good and cards that are not doing enough. We'll just combine it all at once. Frenzy is too good. 1 cost card that deals good damage, applies 2 vulnerable, and adds Dazed into a discard pile, not into my draw pile, into a discard pile, is just way good. You should be picking like 2 of these in every deck you have, because the chance that the Daze is actually going to be a problem, and that it'll be a worse problem than this sweet 3 vulnerable and 16 damage is next to 0. So this card is clearly an always pick, unless you already have 2. And so that's a card I think that should be changed to put the Daze into your draw pile, make things a little bit more risky and interesting. Gather Material, I think, is basically a never pick card, because you have no control whether it's your draw pile or your discard pile as to what cards enter your hand. The only way I can imagine picking this is if you have you really have some serious extra energy to burn and you're just looking for a way to spend it. It is not at all a good option. And more problematically, it messes up your draw and discard. Like, you know what cards are in your draw pile and you know what cards are in your discard pile, and there are certain ways that knowledge can profit you with this character, particularly regarding the rare card that does damage based on how many cards are in your discard pile, unique cards. So skewing that with Gather Material and sort of siphoning from your draw and discard pile can really mess things up for you. So I would not at all pick this card, nor do I like it at all. Grass Hammer, I really like. I really like this card for a few reasons. 1, it's interesting, and 2, it's sort of a cruddy means of multi-target damage that you have to rely on, because otherwise this class is not very good at multi-target damage. It seems to have a weakness for multi-target damage. And if that's the intended, if that's an intended weakness of the class, I very much respect it. I think that classes should have weaknesses and not be excellent at everything. And so there's hardly a means of dealing multi-target damage for this class, and Grass Hammer ends up being one of the options you have to resort to, and that's why I like it a lot. Herbalism is just plain good. It's just an instant way of gaining energy, especially in its upgraded form. Way better than, and this is a point I wanted to get to, way better than Sherry Throw. Way better. So this card is practically unpickable now as it is, because you don't get the benefit of immediate energy when you know that you need it. You have the benefit of energy on the next turn when you're not sure that you'll need it. But it's also a 0 cost, deal basically no damage attack that takes up space in your deck. So not being able to do anything with this card, nor is it contributing to maximizing your energy flow, and only offering you in energy next turn, and it's not clear that you'll need that energy. You don't know whether you'll need that energy, and it's not coming for another turn, makes this card basically a no pick now since its change. Pick Herbalism over Sherry Throw every chance you get, because upgraded it does better than Sherry Throw, and unupgraded it probably still does better if you're packing those 2 cost cards that this class tends to really rely on. Let's see here. Save Valuables recently got nerfed, and on the one hand, I support that because it was a ridiculously cheap source of block, like 9 to 15 block per use for 1 energy, which is really great, and its effect is more good than bad, and so it was definitely a cheap source of block. Now that it costs 0 and doesn't give any block, I feel like it's actually quite less valuable. So the impact of choosing up to 3 cards and putting them in your draw pile, I think is small, and it's questionable as to whether or not that's worth taking 1 card and putting it in your deck and not having another card in your hand. It's questionable. I think I would take this and I'd give it a whirl, all things considered, but it's not a source of block anymore. It's a pure utility, and that really makes you think twice about whether or not you want it at all, because it does not attack and it does not block. Snatch is the way that I want this class to be. I want this class to be more potion-centered early game, so I appreciate this kind of thing. Starfruit I can't really evaluate because it's hard for me to see where the damage potential is. I will just remark that its upgrade is kind of not very special, and I would pick Collector Shot over this card every single time. So until Collector Shot gets nerfed, I don't think Starfruit is of any use. Okay. Tree Growth is pretty good, by the way. I just wanted to raise that as an example of as a potentially good block. I like the concept, and yeah, the delay is not great, but the block potential is high, and so I respect it. Wool Gloves is probably the dominant source of block now that I'm looking at, because Save Valuables no longer gives you block. This is great. Draw 3 cards, discard 3 cards is like way good of an effect. Probably too good. Discarding is good. Drawing is good. This is another card that will help you get rid of the glitched cards in your deck. And help you increase your discard pile count and what have you. I mean, it's just way good. So that's definitely a almost always pick there at this point, now that we don't have better sources of block offhand. I think this is a pithy upgrade for Alchemy Trial. So making the powers cost 0, but not making their effects any better is kind of harsh for this class, and I notice a pattern of that. 10 cards is a lot to play, I think. Now, maybe I'm mistaken about that, but it seems to me that 10 cards is a lot. And so this is not a reliable way of harnessing potions. And I really wish it was, because as I said, I love the potions in this. So let's see here. What kind of potions can we get? I actually haven't paid attention to that. fire explosive for attack, block or energy for skill, strength or dexterity for power, and then lesser, weak, or fear. That's actually kind of interesting. I haven't really utilized that as well as I should have. So anyway, I think this card is just too slow to be useful, at least in High Ascension, which is how I like to play, because, you know, it's a challenge, and I like characters being able to fare with the challenge instead of playing the easy leagues. So balanced growth is not nearly as good as it appears. It being innate is a good upgrade, but gaining only 1 strength or only 1 dexterity per turn is just poor scaling. There's not really much you can do with that unless you're, well, dexterity is more valuable than strength. So if you start out with high strength and you can manage to gain 1 dexterity per turn, that might be better. But I still think it's too slow, especially because it has a precondition where you have to have a higher strength or dexterity already in order for it to grow. It's just too slow to be useful. Big Pouch is another good source of block at this point. The block won't be high, but drawing 3 cards is great. In fact, I realize now that Wool Gloves is actually purely better than this card, unless you happen to have more than 5 cards in your hand before playing this. Yeah, it's almost purely better. The only advantage with Big Pouch is that you can play it as many times as you want. So that's something to look into, because Big Pouch is uncommon and Wool Gloves is common, but Wool Gloves is actually better, all things considered. It wears off faster, its effect wears off, but it's better than Big Pouch. Duality. I actually like this card. I respect it and I like it. It's quite good, actually, because it retains. But the twist is that you can't control whether or not it blocks or attacks. I've had a lot of ridiculous runs where I needed this card. I either needed it to do something, which it did, or I almost died because it did the opposite of what I wanted it to do. So, you know, it makes for fun runs. So I respect that card. Echoes of Nature. I think that this card suffers from trying to do too much at once. But that's a bit of a preemptive judgment. So I'm not really sure how to evaluate this card. It's a source of multi-hit damage, which is good. And it's also a source of multi-block, which is good. So presumably with something like Balanced Growth, it could be pretty useful. So the only thing I don't like is that it's one of its kind. There's only 1 X cost in this class, so Chemical X is hardly a good decision. And so that kind of hurts, I think. I wish that this class had at least 1 other X cost card to justify a major on X cost cards. So, Enchant. Choose a strike card, and it costs 1 more and deals 14 to 18 more damage for the rest of the combat. I think the damage here is not too high. Excuse me. It's not too high because there are almost no strikes you would bother playing this card on. And that's why I don't bother to pick this card. There are 3 strikes, as far as I can recall. Yeah, I think that's, unless there's a rare that I've forgotten. I don't think so, though. Oh, there are 4 strikes. Okay. Very well. There are 4 strikes for this character: Withering Strike, the Basic Strike, the Tactical Strike, and Careful Strike. Only 4 strikes. So why would I pick this card? And don't bother with the Basic Strike. You don't want to be using those. So I don't know why I would bother with this card, since there are only 4 strikes. If I happen to have a deck that was quite full of them, I'd consider taking this card, because I know that over time its use becomes, its utility accumulates. But you know, it's just not. It's too gimmicky of a source of damage. You can't compete with things like Collector Shot and Duality and stuff like that. Not at all. Energy Basket, I have yet to see the use of. Only if you were multiplying potion effects would it be worth it. I respect the fact that it retains, and for that reason, I'm going to leave it alone now. Feeling Fine is totally, totally good. Arguably too good. Whenever you use 3 potions in a turn, remove all of your debuffs. Way, way powerful of a card. I kind of want this to be 4 potions and have it upgrade to 3. Make things a little bit tougher on people. But I don't have a good enough opinion of it. It's a very, very powerful effect to be able to remove all your debuffs. So if you have like bomber form or other things that allow you to accumulate potions, this becomes way, way powerful. Flower Beam is basically your only other source of damage to all enemies, excepting that one rare card that we'll get to. And so for that reason, I respect this card in all of its upgraded forms. I think it's a good example of how a flower card can do well. Same thing for Flower Power. It might actually be too powerful. It's pretty respectable. I really admire the upgrades on this one. So, Fruit Force is way good. Need I say more? It raises your max HP just by taking it. That's pretty amazing. But I see the emphasis of this class on max HP, so I'm not really sure how I can complain. The only way that this card isn't an insta-pick is because the resulting damage it deals is low. But often it can become respectable. You just keep picking these, and the chances that the damage will become respectable goes up. Not that I advise that all the time, but max HP, man, it's hard to go wrong with that. So I'm not sure what to think about that. If anything, I think it's a bit overpowered, but I'm not sure. Glowing Plant, man, this card has been through some depressing changes lately. So its recent change allows these cards to each give you 1 glow power, and that increases their damage by 2, or their block by 1, and you don't lose glow power. I do not like this because it's boring. So accumulating glow power and having only 1 card in this whole character, that allows you to gain and use glow power, it's not good. It's not a viable strategy at all. Being able to accumulate glow power, it's not special. And so I think this playstyle really needs a revamp. I actually liked the old way of doing it, where the benefits were really high if you could manage to combo the 2 together. But you would need ways to manipulate put these cards in your hand or out of your discard pile or something, in a way that would make it viable as a focused strategy. So I don't know what to do about this card. Probably just remove it and just make way for other options. As much as that hurts, I don't know if it'll be any good. Not just by itself. All right, Liquidism. This is probably better than Balanced Growth. It's rough, though, because... No, it's not very good. And the reason why is because when you major in potions such that you might gain a lot of strength or dexterity, you don't need strength or dexterity, generally speaking. And you certainly don't need them randomly, where you can't decide which one you get. So, no, I wouldn't say that this power is good at all. Mining Strike. Oh, that's the strike I forgot. That could be improved by enchant, and that's probably the only viable thing that you would want to do with it. So, I don't think this is good at all. Plated armor isn't that special for such that you have to increase the damage on this thing so hard in order to get like 4 plated armor. Even with Pen Nib, which is the most conspicuous way to increase the damage. Or enchant. I don't think it's that great, but only because plated armor's too slow. That's the only reason why. So I don't really like this one. Better to take this card, which is a little bit better than After Image because most cards you play are unique, and it gains you block at the end of the turn, which allows Auriculum to proc. Let's see here. What's left? Misfortune. I just want to respectfully pass over that card because I think it has play potential that I don't understand. Nutrients. I would love more flower cards. I'd love to have more flower cards that have respectable final upgrades, and then I would take this card. That's the way I want to play this class personally. Odd spoils I don't pick because the chance that the card added to your discard pile will be good and will make it back to your hand in time, it's very, very low. So I don't think this is very good. Unless I'm overlooking something, I don't think this is very good at all. Certainly not as a source of damage. Pollute is excellent. The next turn effect, the next turn status of it hurts, but that's kind of what you need in order to make this card not overpowered. So it probably is a little bit overpowered, but I'll leave it alone. I think it's just good. Polymorphism got a nerf, and man, that hurts. I mean, how much use really is this card now? So it pays for itself, and it draws you another card instead of itself. So if all cards in your hand are unique, then you've made an extra attack that deals in between 4 and 13 damage max. It's just an attack. That's basically like an attack costing 0, but drawing you 1 card, to be fair. But the liability is that not all the cards in your hand will be unique, and then you'll have to play them in order to crack off this measly little thing. So I think this is really starting to run out of its welcome as a card that I'd put in my deck. I don't know if I'd put it in my deck very often. Maybe late game when I think all my cards are unique, if they are unique. So I really don't like this at all. It's just a means of... It's only useful if I wanted to accumulate attacks for something like Shuriken. Recipe change, I really like. I really like recipe change. I'm kind of bummed that 25% of my future potions won't be changed as well. I kind of liked that, but then again, I never was ever able to use it because hardly ever do you draw random potions. It doesn't really make sense. So I guess I see why that was moved. Anyway, recipe change is like your tactical weapon if you're stockpiling potions. So I like that. I like that a lot. Recovery herb always seems to be much worse than you'd expect it to be. It never heals you very much. So, yeah, I don't really like it. This is random, so I won't touch it. This is good. Sealed Bomb is awful. It's just awful. It makes me unhappy to see this card. So, first of all, it does less damage than Collector's Shot. Period. And it costs way too much. Because its cost low, even if its cost lowers, it has to be in your hand while you're using potions. Never, ever, ever will you play this card. The only even when I had Snecko Eye, I was hesitant to pick this card because it's just such a waste. So it's like a Collector's Shot if you happen to have Snecko Eye. Otherwise, don't bother. So I really hope this card gets removed or changed in some significant way. Smart Maneuver is incredible. The fact that it retains is crazy. It's an interesting card. I want more cards in this class that give you certain potions so you can really focus on how to maximize this class's lesser potion potential. So that's one of the reasons why I'm giving this card a pass, even though it's quite good, is because it gives you a certain potion. I just appreciate that. I hope that this class gets more of those cards. Solidify similarly is great, except unupgraded, it's not that great. It's really not that great at all. I wouldn't ever pick this card unupgraded because 30 or more block is kind of ridiculous. of a target, and 8 block isn't particularly good for a block card, but 10 and 20 is a lot more reasonable. And so giving you a lesser block potion on top of that is just nice. So Transmute I generally don't pick, because why would you bother to gamble? Why would you spend 1 energy to gamble instead of play the cards in your hand that you picked for the purpose of winning battles? So Upgrade Bag is great. I don't need to say more. Lift is just about as good as Herbalism, maybe a little bit better. And oh yeah, it upgrades similarly, so never mind. It's just very good. Venom Barrier's got a steep upgrade in defense, which I just wanted to flag as saying, okay, maybe that should be improved upon, because like it's very good. I know it's very good. Applying 3 poison is just way good. It's just that 8 to 13, like, I think the creator should decide whether or not this card is good or not, and then have the upgrade be a little bit smaller in value. Whether that ends up increasing its block or decreasing its block, I don't know. Withering Strike, I haven't thought very much about it. Maybe it's good. Black Tea. Okay, let me run through these rares. I know I'm taking more time than I intended to, so let me run through these rares as diligently as I can. This is the second reason why I decided to make this video. Black Tea is just so sad now. I think one of the great casualties of the recent update is that this card no longer has a startup, no longer gives you a potion on startup. This card is hardly useful at all now. So it gains you a max of 4 or 5 strength. Actually, no, it gains you a max of 3 or 4 strength, because the very first round is round 1, and that subtracts from the total. So strength is not very useful for this character, because as we've said, it really doesn't have a source of multi-target damage, excepting Echo of Nature and Flower Whip. Doesn't have a source of multi-hit damage, and doesn't need it either, because its single target damage is just way good. So strength for 1 energy and low strength at that is just not worth it at all. And also, even worse, if you wanted to utilize this strength, you have to hold all of your potions, not use them. So this is no longer an advantage. It used to be an advantage that you could exhaust the Black Tea, because the Black Tea gave you something at startup. So you may not even want the Black Tea, and that was what was so fun about it. And now it's just boring and not useful at all. So I really hope that this card reverts, or goes back to, just becomes something better. It's Black Tea after all. Maybe it should give you energy. Maybe it should give you an energy potion on startup. That could be interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure how else to improve it, but right now it's a no pick for me. Bomber Form is almost an always pick. It is basically the glorious in-game strategy for this character. And I often wonder if it's too good for that reason. The only drawback it would have is that it's expensive and it starts up slow. But otherwise, it's bomb. It's just incredible. And the upgrade is like twice as good as the original form. So I'm not really sure what to think. This might be a card... Yeah. I don't know. This might be a card where it would be better for balance to decrease the energy on upgrade than to double the damage increase. Despite what I said earlier about the powers upgrading in ways that aren't great. Yeah. Okay. Bulldoze is the last source of damage to all enemies, and that's why it makes a particularly good pick, because it satisfies the weakness of the character. And one of the reasons why I respect it is that this card is still weak. It does not deal a whole lot of damage to all enemies, except upgraded. That can be pretty powerful, but a little bit late in the game. And you don't want to deal damage to all enemies late in the game, generally. That's not very good, because that means that you've had lots of enemies to worry about for a few turns. So I respect this card. I think, yeah, I wouldn't do anything with it. It's good. Same for Colorful Guardian. Coup de Grace is a waste of time. The hit point condition is just an additional hurdle that's totally unnecessary. Just use other cards that deal more damage for 1 energy. Why bother with Coup de Grace? It's one of the worst of the rares. Cursed Blade is absolutely the best. It's way overpowered. I'm not sure why I wouldn't pick this almost every time. The Curse of Normality is not a big problem. For this to be able to deal good damage, not as much as Collector Shot, but good damage, and basically nullify the enemy's attack, it's just amazing. There's really nothing more to say. I like this blade. I wish it would be a little bit more interesting than overpowered. And I like the fact that it gives you the Curse of Normality. I think that it should be improved upon, though, in some way. I'm not sure exactly what that way is. Maybe losing less strength or something. I mean, it's just so good as is. So, Examine is also so good, with the only problem being that it discards any card you don't play. Way good at getting value for your energy. Flaming Bottle, I really want to stress. This card is not good at all. It's just really, really bad. I would rather take Coup de Grace over Flaming Bottle, for sure. And I want this card to be good. I want this card to do something interesting with fire potions. That sounds awesome. Have it like give you 2 fire potions and deal like 15 damage. Just really nuke someone. Make those potions fun. Or make all your fire potions double in strength and you gain 1. I mean, that'd be bomb. So I want it to be good. Grass Knot is too interesting. I don't know if it's good or not. The only use I see for it that I like is removing Glitched from the deck. Same for, Growbook is a can of worms. I'm not going to get into it. Heart to Fruit, I appreciate the nerf because basically Heart to Fruit was an insta-win whenever you got this card early in the game. I just appreciate the nerf. I'm not sure if this is still overpowered as is, but I appreciate the nerf. Mind Search is what this class is supposed to be. Being able to choose 2 out of 4 lesser potions. So you got some options, but some randomness with potions, and it retains. It's nice, man. That's the way I want to see the class go, is really focus on those potions. But with the darn Collector Shot, there's no point. Overflowing is way good. I don't know what more to say about that. It's way good. Probably too good. At least dock it down to 2 energy. That's way good. I mean, compare that to Adrenaline. It's just, there is no comparison. It's way better. The only problem being that this class has trouble using all of its energy. That's perhaps the only problem that makes this card not incredible. Yeah, this is not good at all. Not good at all. We need more flower cards for this class for this to be remotely good. And the innate, it doesn't cut it. Yeah, for a rare, it's just not good. Your flower cards aren't that great that you would depend on this to upgrade them. And to deal damage equal 3 times the number of them, that's nothing. That's no damage at all. Poison Mastery. So this is another card that I really like because it makes the potions interesting. It makes them fun. So I like increasing the potion damage by 100%. I think this card got nerfed. I think it did get nerfed, but in a way that made sense. So yeah, I like it. It's not nearly as good as Bomber Form, and for that reason, I think it needs to cost 1 and then 0 or something like that. Yeah. But otherwise, I like it. Scroll of Purity is very complex. I'm not sure how to evaluate it. Yeah, I'm not sure how to evaluate it. Except that, I guess I could say, you're not going to be using enough potions for this to be valuable. Unless you're happening to draw Glitched. That's the consideration. Finally, Stone Fence. Okay, these are the kind of rares I want in a class. Rares that are really interesting. Rares that open up new vistas of playing possibility. that really make you think, is this useful for me or not? And in what ways can I maximize this potential and play in ways that I haven't played before? Stone Fence, right here. I know it doesn't relate to the potions, really, or anything else about this class, but it's just a good idea. I mean, having an extra attack every turn, even if it costs 0, is an advantage that you have to think about. Maybe you want that in your deck. If you have like Kunai or Shuriken, or Pen Nib or whatever. I kind of wish the 0 damage got used by the boot. It does not. I'm not sure if that's a vanilla game thing or this mod thing, but it does not. I kind of wish it did. However, this card is tricky because it does damage next turn equal to the amount of block you have left after the enemy's attack. And, well, as a source of damage, it's not that respectable, because often just dealing straight damage with attacks will get you a lot further. So I struggle to see if this is if this is generally good, or if you have to really build your deck to make this something. I think generally it doesn't quite make the cut. I wish that the thrower cards would deal 1 damage minimum. And then the upgraded version would deal like 3 plus the block. That's what I wish. So that we can at least, have the boot exploit them. Something like that. So that's my card review, and it got a little bit more comprehensive than I intended it to. But I hope that this is helpful, particularly for the mod creator, in deciding where you want to go with this class and what this class could do better. Because I actually have really liked this class, and I have considered really making something more of it, like having play videos of it posted and such like that, really drawing some attention to it. But lately, I think some of the changes in this class have taken a turn for the worse. And so I just wanted to bring attention to how these cards stack up, and I think what this class could do better in the future, because I actually like it. So I hope that that all helps, and I hope that this is useful. And yeah, rock on. I'll see you next time in another one of my Slay the Spire vids.